You've probably heard this about 1,000 times. Inflation is just the cost of living going up. But that is a lie, and it's a dangerous one. And it's time we ripped the mask off. Because the truth is this: inflation is not rising prices. Inflation is the crashing value of your capital. And once you understand that, you'll never see your paycheck or any of your expenses the same way again. Ludwig von Mises, a giant in economics, warned us over 100 years ago. Inflation is not accidental. Inflation is not neutral. And it's not just some weather pattern that's drifting through the economy. It's deliberate. It's man-made. And it's used by governments and central banks to shift wealth from those who earn it to those who control the system. So when central banks increase the money supply through market operations by purchasing securities through money that they create through the reserves in the central banks, they're increasing the supply of money relative to all other goods and services produced in an economy. They're increasing the supply of money typically faster than the available supply of goods and services. However, all this new money doesn't hit everybody equally. It flows first through the government, through financial institutions, and then, yes, into asset holders. So where does all this inflated money go? Not to workers, not to savers. It goes into the relative value of assets, stocks, real estate, commodities. And what happens to the prices of these assets? They skyrocket relative to the purchasing value of the dollars. Meanwhile, millions of Canadians are living paycheck to paycheck, earning money in dollars that are losing value every year. They're losing. That's why it seems to be increasingly more difficult for the average Canadian to purchase a home. And worse, most people are so uneducated on sound money principles, they're literally begging the government to do more of the same bad money policies that got them into the trouble in the first place. So here's how inflation hurts people with income. Your wages are lagging behind, and you're trying to negotiate perhaps a cost of living allowance or a cost of living increase, but that's not even keeping up with the price of goods. Your dollars buy less: food, rent, gas. All these prices are going up. Your savings are evaporating. That $10,000 emergency fund doesn't really go as far as it did before. The down payment of that home, over the last several decades, the cost of housing is going up faster than the people's ability to save. It's a silent tax for those who work for a living. Meanwhile, the asset holders are winning. Why? Because asset prices are stable while the value of the dollar is dropping. And if you're owning the stock, the business, the rental property, the investments, while they may be going up in notional value, your real win is against the falling, crashing prices of the dollar. Let's be honest. Inflation doesn't scare the wealthy. It makes them richer. And in my view, this is exactly why the whole elbows up crowd got around preserving their value of their assets. They didn't want to see fiscal austerity. They've been used to the money printer going for so long. They've actually developed a bit of a Stockholm syndrome to bad fiscal policy and bad monetary policy. But inflation is more insidious than this. It is a process of wealth redistribution. It transfers wealth from the late receivers of the money to the early receivers of the money. And often the early receivers of the money are politically connected. So inflation isn't a problem. It isn't a bug in the system. It is the system. So people that believe in central banking or the Keynesian system of economics believe that inflation is a good thing. They'll tell you that it's good for the economy, that it's growing the economy. But the Austrian school of economics, the people that follow that school of thought, know better. They understand that inflation distorts prices, destroys savings, and creates artificial booms followed by painful busts. And worst of all, it punishes the honest, productive worker while rewarding the politically connected speculator. So if you're wondering why it feels harder to get ahead and you feel like you're working harder, now you understand why. Inflation is theft. It's not price stability. It's about extracting the wealth from those who don't own assets, typically the poorer and lower middle class. Now, the whole point of this is to identify that where people blame capitalism for inflation and greedy supermarkets and greedy business owners, it's actually quite the opposite. The state is responsible for the inflation and the policies of inflation. Now, that's not to say that the wealthy business owners don't like inflation, they love it. But to suggest that capitalism is at the root of the inflation-driven problem in the economy is not only nonsense, it's ignorance. So if you want to beat inflation, you got to start paying attention. Take your head out of the sand, start learning about Austrian economics, and start realizing that there are unintended bad consequences even from seemingly great public policies. So subscribe, like, and share this video because we are trying to build the next generation of wealth builders. Because the system isn't broken, it's built that way.